I was reborn on the day my sister and I were choosing our husbands. That's when I realized I could hear other people's thoughts. I heard my sister's voice in my mind. This time I have to get the better husband before she does. Then she eagerly pulled to herself the gentle husband I had married in my past life, leaving me with the abusive man who had beaten her. I laughed. She really thought the man I had married before was a good person? This is the story of how one sister's jealousy led to her downfall, while my newfound ability revealed the true nature of those around me. Subscribe now to discover how I navigated treacherous family politics and found unexpected love where I least expected it. Once again, I found myself at the husband selection day. Seated across from us at the dining table were two men of similar age. One was Logan Carter, the eldest son of the Carter family, cold and distant by nature. The other was Ethan Carter, the younger son. Though technically illegitimate, he had a mild temperament and was gentle. This time I have to get the better husband first. My sister's voice echoed in my ears. I looked at her, but she hadn't spoken. She was simply staring fixedly at Ethan. "Just wait. I'll take you away this time." Her voice came again. That's when I realized that not only had I been reborn, but I could hear people's thoughts. And judging by what my sister had just said, she too had been reborn. Otherwise, there was no way she could be thinking like this. Sure enough, in the next second she walked over and sat down next to Ethan, looking at him shyly. "Hi, my name is Sophie Evans. I like you," she said affectedly. At that moment, my father suddenly spoke up. "Susan, since your sister has chosen Ethan Carter, then you will marry Logan Carter." As soon as he said this, my sister's eyes filled with satisfaction. In her mind, she mocked, "This time you can take the beatings for me." In my past life, Sophie had married Logan. Logan was a successful businessman, always busy with work, and known for being emotionally distant. My sister had tried countless times to get close to him, but each time she was beaten and thrown out of his room. Eventually, because she never had a child, Mrs. Carter declared her barren and kicked her out of the family. Meanwhile, I had married Ethan. Even though he had little power in the Carter family, he still provided me with food and comfort. He took me shopping, out to dinner, and spoiled me endlessly. Everyone in the Carter household knew how much he adored me. Later, when Logan suddenly died of poisoning, Ethan inherited the Carter family business, and my status in the household skyrocketed overnight. My sister, consumed by jealousy, deliberately drove her car into me while I was shopping, killing us both. "All right, father," I responded with a smile. "Actually, I like Logan too." Then I calmly walked over and sat down next to Logan Carter. I have to admit that this man had an incredibly strong presence. The moment I sat down, I felt an icy aura envelop me, making me hesitate to speak. No wonder my sister had suffered so terribly in the past life. I tried to listen to his thoughts but heard nothing. However, when Ethan turned to look at Sophie with a smile, I suddenly heard his voice in my mind. "What a pretty little doll." A shiver ran down my spine. By instinct, I grabbed Logan's hand. Despite his cold personality, his hands were surprisingly warm. Feeling my touch, he turned to look at me. I quickly let go, and only then did he remain silent. Although Logan seemed intimidating, I still felt that staying with him was far better than staying with Ethan, that venomous snake. This time, I was determined to change my tragic fate. I would make my own money, become independent, and not rely on anyone. Our wedding was held together. In my past life, we had also gotten married on the same day. Back then, Logan hadn't even shown up to the ceremony, while Ethan had arrived early in the morning, causing everyone to say he was the more attentive husband. And exactly as expected, history repeated itself. Ethan, dressed in a white suit, rushed over and carried Sophie away. When they passed by me, she shot me a smug look. "Susan, where's Logan? Didn't he come to get you?" she mocked. I simply smiled. "No need to worry, Sophie. Just take care of yourself." Her face darkened at my words, clearly choked. "Go ahead and laugh now. We'll see if you're still laughing when you're the one taking the beatings." After saying this in her mind, Ethan Carter carried Sophie downstairs with him. But it was still too early to say who would have the last laugh. Just as in my past life, Logan Carter didn't attend the wedding, leaving both my sister and me to endure endless gossip and judgmental looks. Sophie was even more delighted, unable to contain her excitement as she clung to Ethan and blurted out, "I love you, Ethan." Then he kissed her. After the kiss, she turned to stare at me, her lips still wet with saliva. I knew she was expecting to see me humiliated, but I wasn't stupid. Unlike my past self who had stormed out furiously, giving everyone and the Carter family the perfect scandal to gossip about, I wouldn't make the same mistake. I remembered how in my last life, everyone had criticized Sophie for being immature and unsuitable to be the eldest daughter-in-law of the Carter family. As a result, after the wedding, Mrs. Carter never showed her any kindness, making her life in the Carter household miserable. With a balanced smile, I picked up the microphone and addressed the guests below the stage. Logan had important business to negotiate today, so I'll make the rounds in his place for the wedding toast. I hope everyone doesn't mind. The moment I said this, the murmuring among the guests ceased. Even Mrs. Carter, seated at the head table, gave me a look of new appreciation. The Carter family was a prestigious house, highly concerned with maintaining their reputation. In moments like these, a daughter-in-law needed to show grace and composure. Sophie also noticed Mrs. Carter's reaction, and her eyes flashed with irritation. "Disgusting," she scoffed in her thoughts. "Just wait. When it's time for the tea ceremony, I'll make sure you embarrass yourself." Honestly, I found this ability to hear other people's thoughts incredibly useful. It was like having a cheat code for life. Everything became much easier. When the tea ceremony began, I calmly lifted my dress and walked toward Mrs. Carter. Sophie kept her eyes fixed on me, mentally counting 1, 2, 3. At the last second, I swerved just in time to avoid whatever she had planned. Instead, she lost her balance and fell hard to the floor, spilling tea all over herself. "Oh no, are you okay?" Ethan hastily extended his hand to help her up, but in his mind I heard him mock, "What an idiot." The entire room turned to look in our direction. Mrs. Carter's face darkened with displeasure. "So careless. Do you even resemble a proper daughter-in-law?" "I'm sorry, Mother. It wasn't on purpose," Sophie stammered, trying to cover her embarrassment. But the reluctance in her eyes was obvious. If I were her, I would have just accepted the loss and focused on living quietly. But she wasn't willing to leave me in peace, so I certainly wouldn't go easy on her. With Sophie making a fool of herself, the wedding ended in an awkward rush. From beginning to end, Mrs. Carter never gave her a kind look, but when she turned to me, there was only approval in her gaze. She even took my hand and said warmly, "Susan, tonight I'll make sure Logan comes home to keep you company. He must make it up to you." And sure enough, that night Logan actually returned. The moment he walked through the door, he loosened his tie, his face full of exhaustion. I quickly stepped forward to take his coat. "Logan, you must be tired today," I said gently. He just looked at me and said nothing. In my past life, the servants had gossiped about how on our wedding night Logan never came home. My sister had waited alone in the bridal chamber, becoming the laughingstock of the entire household. When she went to Mrs. Carter to complain, she was reprimanded instead, saying she lacked the skill to win a man's heart. While Logan was in the shower, I prepared his bed, made tea, and arranged the sofa for me to sleep on. When he came out and saw the scene, a flash of surprise passed through his eyes. I quickly explained, "You sleep on the bed, I'll take the sofa." He narrowed his eyes slightly, studying me. "Susan, are you trying to play hard to get?" Dressed only in a robe, his chest was slightly exposed, drops of water still clinging to his skin. I have to admit that his physique was incredible. I quickly looked away. We don't have real feelings for each other. Sharing a bed would be uncomfortable for both of us. If possible, I'd like to propose a partnership. Logan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "After all, our marriage is just a business arrangement. Many couples in our situation live separate lives and only pretend for appearances. I married you simply to ensure a stable and comfortable life. I don't expect love." Hearing my words, he suddenly smiled. "You're smart. That works for me too." I can agree to that. I was just an ordinary person. I didn't have the skills or confidence to control a man's heart. In the Carter family, Logan's attitude toward me would largely depend on how Mrs. Carter viewed me. I had no desire to end up like Sophie in our past life, targeted and isolated by everyone. That wouldn't benefit me. Besides, in my past life, Logan had been physically abusive to Sophie. I had no intention of provoking him and ending up in the same situation. Peaceful coexistence was the best option. This time, my only goal was to earn money, start my own business, and rise to success by my own merits. To keep up appearances, I had Logan post a picture of us holding hands on social media, with the caption, "Happy Newlyweds." That way, everyone would believe our marriage was fine. As I browsed his profile, I noticed how empty it was. Besides this new post, there was nothing else. Someone like him must have a monotonous life. That night, Logan really took the bed while I slept on the sofa. He had no concept of chivalry whatsoever, but I should be grateful. At least he didn't force me into anything. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of Logan exercising. He was doing push-ups while listening to music. I had heard that emotionally cold men were generally fragile, but his six-pack abs and toned calf muscles were proof of his incredible strength, far superior to Ethan's physique. "Stop staring. I'm not interested in you," Logan suddenly said, rising from the floor. He put on his shirt and added, "Get ready. We're going to breakfast." I knew what he was really saying. He wanted people to see us together to make it look like we were in love. Honestly, he seemed reasonable. I still couldn't understand why he had abused Sophie in our past life. After getting dressed, I left the house with Logan. The moment we stepped outside, I saw Sophie and Ethan walking toward us hand in hand. Sophie was wearing a strapless dress, her collarbone and shoulders covered in hickeys, which she deliberately displayed as she leaned in closer. Her face radiated pride as she looked me up and down. "She's completely covered. She must have been beaten last night and is trying to hide the bruises," her inner voice echoed in my mind, followed by a smug smile. "Susan, how was your wedding night?" she asked, her voice full of mockery. Today I was wearing an elegant long-sleeved kapow-style dress. Sophie must have forgotten that Mrs. Carter despised revealing clothes and excessive makeup, but I wasn't going to remind her. I simply smiled. "Sophie, based on seniority in the Carter family, you should be calling me sister-in-law, not sister." Her face darkened. She gritted her teeth, reluctant to accept it. "Even Logan never calls you that. What right do you have to demand this from me?" Then she turned to Logan. "Logan, say something!" I could feel the air around Logan growing colder. In his mind, Ethan cursed, "Damn idiot. Just wait until tonight. I'll teach you a lesson." He pulled Sophie's hand, silently signaling for her to stop talking, but she was completely oblivious to the danger she had just put herself in. "Tell me, Ethan," Logan said calmly. "What is the first rule of the Carter family?" Ethan instantly lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Logan. I'll take care of this immediately." In the next second, slap! Ethan delivered a hard slap across Sophie's face. "Show proper respect. Greet your brother-in-law and sister-in-law appropriately," he ordered. Sophie's face was red from the slap. She was absolutely furious, but she knew Logan wasn't someone she could challenge. Reluctantly, she muttered through gritted teeth, "Good morning, brother-in-law. Good morning, sister-in-law." As soon as she said this, Ethan dragged her away. I remembered that the first rule of the Carter family was that no one was allowed to disrespect the heir or his wife. Addressing them improperly resulted in 30 lashes, and Logan was the legitimate heir of the Carter family. I recalled that in my past life, to survive, I had memorized all the rules of the Carter family. Back then, after Sophie married Logan, she constantly bullied me. But because I knew this rule, I never dared show disrespect to her. I had assumed that Sophie also knew the family rules, but clearly she hadn't memorized them. That's why she thought she could still intimidate me in this life. When we arrived at the dining hall, Sophie had already received her punishment. Her face was pale, and she kept her head down, not daring to sit at the moment. Under the table, I glimpsed Ethan repeatedly stabbing her hand with a needle. "Useless woman. It's all your fault that I had to endure this humiliation," he cursed in his mind, pressing harder each time. In my past life, it wasn't long after marrying him that he started abusing me. He never allowed me to speak about it, and I had no way to escape. I suffered immensely because of him. That's why in this life I would rather stay with Logan than end up with Ethan again. "Sophie, this time you chose your own husband. Don't blame me." Mrs. Carter arrived, and we all stood up to greet her. She leaned on her cane and was about to let us sit when her gaze froze on Sophie. Sophie hadn't changed her dress. She was still wearing that strapless gown. Sensing Mrs. Carter's disapproval, she immediately forced a smile, pretending to be embarrassed. "Mother, it was all Ethan's fault. He said he liked how I looked carrying his child." The moment those words left her mouth, Mrs. Carter's face darkened with fury. She raised her cane and struck Sophie on the back. Shameless! What you two do as a couple is your business, but you must not speak of such things in public, and never dress so indecently again. You're bringing shame to the family. In my past life, even a maid had been fired just for wearing shorts. That's why I'd always been careful. I only managed to survive in the Carter house because I lived cautiously. But Sophie always assumed that my good life was because I had married the right man. She completely misunderstood. Why did she think a good life had to depend on someone else? I'm sorry, Mother. I didn't know. Sophie whimpered, sweat trickling down her forehead from the pain. Ethan quickly intervened, pretending to take responsibility. Mother, it's my fault. I forgot to remind her. Though he sounded remorseful, I could hear his inner thoughts. Serves you right. Watching you get beaten is the best entertainment. Disgusting. What a psychopath. Since she was a newly married daughter-in-law, Mrs. Carter didn't reprimand her further. She took her seat and instructed us all to eat. Logan remained silent the whole time, but as we ate, he casually placed some food on my plate. I could feel Sophie's fervent gaze upon me, as if she wanted to tear me apart. Smiling even more brightly, I said, "Thank you, darling." Mrs. Carter looked pleased as she turned to me. "Susan, after lunch you must go to the company with Logan and start learning. As the eldest daughter-in-law of the Carter family, you need to understand the business." I had expected this. In my past life, she had said the same thing to Sophie at the dinner table. But Sophie had replied, "I don't want to learn. I can just depend on Logan for the rest of my life." She had voluntarily pushed away a golden opportunity. Then, when she was eventually expelled from the Carter family, she had nothing. "Of course, Mother," I replied obediently. Logan took me to the company. Throughout the journey, I tried to listen to his thoughts, but I heard nothing. Well, that made sense. A man like him wouldn't be influenced by emotions. He had nothing to worry about. When we arrived, Logan brought me to his office. "Wait here," he said categorically before leaving. Through the glass door, I saw him heading toward the conference room in a hurry. Curious, I followed. Inside, he was negotiating with a British businessman about selling a formula he had developed. Fortunately, before coming here, I had already done my research. This deal was critical for the Carter family. I heard the British man's thoughts loud and clear. This formula is only worth a few hundred when. This time I'm going to make sure I fleece the Carter family. I looked at him in surprise. His expression was calm and composed, revealing nothing. No one would suspect the scheming going on in his mind. He confidently quoted a price of $3 million. Logan hesitated, not responding immediately. Sensing an opportunity, the man pressed further. "Mr. Carter, I assure you this product will bring you far more value than $3 million. Just as Logan was about to agree, I pushed the door open and walked in. "Hello," I greeted in English. Then I picked up the bottle of skincare serum he had developed and examined it closely. "I'm a woman. I understand skincare products better than most. Your formula contains only brightening ingredients. It has no anti-aging or wrinkle-reducing properties, and as an engineer you must know that surface brightening effects are negligible at best. So tell me, why exactly is this formula worth $3 million? The British man was stunned. Logan leaned back, watching me with interest, not interrupting. I took that as a silent invitation to continue. "However," I added, "since this is a foreign product and you've done quite a bit of promotion on social media, many people are already familiar with and trust your brand. So I'll offer this value." I raised a single finger. $1 million, I said. The man looked shocked. "Jack, $1 million is quite generous. Think about it," Logan said, his gaze sharp. No, I interrupted. "I'll give you $10,000 for a formula that's barely worth a few hundred. $10,000 is already my final offer." The room fell silent. The British man stood up abruptly, clearly angry. In broken Chinese, he demanded, "Miss, who are you to name such a price? How am I supposed to do business like this? Fine, I won't sell. It's not like you need it." With that, he turned to leave. "Jack," Logan's voice was calm but authoritative, "I'll give you $1 million. Sign the contract now, and I expect you to apologize to my wife." Jack froze mid-step, his eyes lighting up with excitement as he immediately turned back. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter. I didn't realize you were Mr. Carter's wife." After that, Logan took Jack to sign the contract. When it was all over, I still couldn't understand. That formula was only worth a few $100s. Why did you pay him $1 million? Logan took a sip of coffee and spoke in a measured tone. You have good instinct for business, but you still don't fully understand the market. Jack's formula itself is worth nothing. I knew that from the beginning. What I wanted was the brand he built. Although it's not yet well known, he has already established a strong reputation among young women. With just a bit more promotion, I can easily recoup that $1 million. Suddenly it all made sense. So that's why Jack was so confident. He knew his brand had value. Coming here was definitely the right choice. I was learning things I never would have learned in my past life, but I was still curious. How did you know the formula was only worth a few hundred? Logan fixed his sharp gaze on me. I forced an awkward smile. I guessed. He didn't question me further, but I took this opportunity to make a request. I want to run one of your subsidiary companies. In my past life, Ethan had no status in the Carter family and couldn't give me anything. I had always wanted to start my own business, be my own boss. That way, I wouldn't have to depend on anyone. Once I made enough money, I could leave Logan. Logan studied me for a moment before smiling mischievously. You're quite ambitious. Not planning to take the company, make a fortune, and then disappear, are you? His penetrating gaze made me feel exposed, as if he could see right through me. Damn, how was he better at reading people than I was? For the first time, I felt inferior. I had a literal superpower, but he still outplayed me. This must be what real talent looked like. Of course not, I said with a smile. I just want to find something to do. Logan took a sip of his coffee and nodded. All right, but you need to learn from me first, before I let you take charge. For the next few days, I followed Logan to the company and learned a lot. Not just about business, but also about navigating relationships and social situations. Surprisingly, one day he took the initiative to invite me to dinner, and not just anywhere. It was the most luxurious Western restaurant in the city. I didn't expect to find Sophie and Ethan there. Sophie was cutting his steak, but the moment she saw us enter, she immediately dropped the knife and fork, looking startled. Susan, you're here too. She quickly realized her mistake and corrected herself. I mean, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, you're here for dinner too. In the next second, I heard her inner thoughts. What the hell of all times? Why did I have to run into her now? I can't lose face. Yes, I said with a smile. Logan and I came to have dinner together. As I spoke, I took the initiative to intertwine my arm with Logan's. He didn't resist. Ethan quickly stepped forward and greeted us. Brother-in-law, sister-in-law. Logan didn't acknowledge them. Instead, he pulled me toward a table and seated us. I caught the furious look in Sophie's eyes as she watched us. She was probably wondering why Logan still hadn't beaten me, why he had even taken me out to dinner. When I went to the bathroom, Sophie was waiting for me outside, her expression murderous, exactly like the look she had when she drove into me in my past life. You must be getting beaten behind closed doors, she sneered. Stop pretending. Just looking at you makes me sick. Hearing her words, I laughed softly. Then my eyes landed on the needle marks on her arm. Oh my God, Sophie, I said with simulated concern. What happened to your arm? So many needle marks. Her eyes flashed with panic as she quickly covered her arm, glaring at me. It's none of your business. It's just something fun between Ethan and me. Then she smiled maliciously, leaning in. Not that you would understand. Logan probably hasn't even touched you, has he? Unlike Ethan, he wants me all night long. I'm exhausted. She was clearly miserable, but still trying to act superior. I was curious how long she could maintain this facade. That's wonderful, I said with a bright smile. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness. I turned to leave, but she suddenly grabbed a handful of my hair and pulled hard. Are you mocking me? She growled. I frowned. She was as insane as she had been in my past life. I struggled to free myself, but before I could, Logan appeared out of nowhere. Without hesitation, he kicked her away. Disrespecting your sister-in-law, he said coldly, towering over her. Do you know what the punishment is for that? I remembered that the punishment was to be locked in the underground cell. I had been sent there once before because of Sophie. That place was filled with countless rats, cockroaches, and snakes. She knew exactly what fate awaited her. Her face turned deathly pale. Brother-in-law, I didn't mean it. Please don't do this. But Logan was never one to be soft-hearted. Once he made a decision, he never changed his mind. He ordered Ethan to take her away. I heard Ethan curse in his thoughts. Hope she dies in there. Less trouble for me. Logan brought me back to our room and checked my head. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, pushing his hand away. She just pulled my hair a little. I straightened my clothes and fixed my hair before looking at him. But why did you suddenly come to the bathroom? His dark eyes met mine. You were gone for a while. I was about to ask why you two fought again. I hesitated. I couldn't exactly tell him that Sophie had been reborn and was deliberately attacking me. So I simply said, she told me that she and Ethan are intimate every night, and that they're very happy, unlike you, who doesn't touch me. That's why we fought. Hearing my words, Logan's eyes darkened slightly. So, you're implying something? I immediately realized he had misunderstood me. Waving my hands in panic, I quickly clarified. No, that's not what I meant. I was just explaining why we fought. Logan stared at me intently. Susan, have you ever thought about doing that with me? Of course not. I blurted out without hesitation. I told you, I just want to rely on you for a stable life. That's all. Just that? He pressed. I nodded firmly. He didn't say anything more. Instead, he suddenly slammed the door behind him and left. I had no idea which part of my words had upset him, nor did I care. I just wanted to focus on my own plans. The next day, Logan didn't take me to the company. Instead, he sent me to the subsidiary office to manage it on my own. I threw myself into running the company, determined to make $10 million before walking away. Every day I pursued projects, negotiated deals, and brought in significant profits. Mrs. Carter even allowed me to take my share of the earnings directly. Just as I was reveling in my financial success, Sophie was finally released from the underground cell. That day, I had just finished work and returned home when I saw her. She had lost a lot of weight, but was still carefully dressed, her makeup impeccable, her clothes stylish. She clung to Ethan as they walked toward me step by step. Sister-in-law, she said sweetly. I've already asked Mother's permission to learn the business of the company with you. I want to help lighten your workload. But in her mind, I heard, very soon I'll make sure you and Logan die together. A sudden realization hit me. Logan's death in my past life had been sudden and unexplained. So it was Ethan. He was the one who caused it. And now he not only wanted to kill Logan, but he wanted to kill me too. I controlled my emotions and smiled at Sophie. Great, you can start tomorrow. I deliberately agreed, because I wanted to know exactly what they were planning. Sure enough, in the next moment, I heard her inner thoughts. What an idiot. Just wait, I'll kill you both soon and live freely. So she had spent days in the underground cell, but she was still lucid. Too bad she didn't know I could hear her thoughts. There was no way she could kill me. Logan had died of poisoning in my past life. Now I remembered the time I had seen a cabinet full of colorful vials in Ethan's basement. Back then, he frequently used them to experiment on me. Sometimes they made me pass out. Other times they put my body into overdrive. Thinking about it now, those were probably his poison samples. I brought Sophie to the company and had her start as an intern. She had learned to hide her emotions now, agreeing to everything I said without hesitation. I knew exactly why. She was meticulously planning a murder. Ethan wanted Logan and me dead. But Sophie, she wanted Ethan dead too. That was something I could use to my advantage. It wasn't long before I put my plan into action. Behind Logan's back, I went to meet Ethan. I knew him well. He liked obedient women. That's how I survived alongside him for so long in my past life. So this time, I deliberately dressed provocatively and looked at him with weak admiration. Ethan, I like you. His interest was immediately piqued. Sister-in-law, aren't you afraid my brother will kill you? I bit my lip, pretending to be shy. I've always wanted to be with you. Then I lowered my voice and added, and I have something important to tell you. He leaned in, intrigued. Sophie wants to poison you, I whispered. Yesterday at the company, I heard her talking to a man about it. Ethan's face darkened instantly, fury burning in his eyes. Are you serious? Of course, I nodded. She said you always hit her, so she's going to kill you. She wants to rise to power alone. Because of the memories from my past life, I knew exactly how to manipulate him. Hearing my words, Ethan believed me completely. His darkest secrets, his violent nature, his cruelty, were known only to Sophie and himself. No one else could know about this. "Bitch," he spat. "I'll make her pay." Then he turned to me with a malicious smile. "Sister-in-law, just wait. Once I get rid of Logan and her, you'll be my wife." After saying this, Ethan left. He really thinks I'm that stupid. There was no way I was following him. Without wasting time, I went straight to Logan. His life didn't directly affect me, but in this life, he had helped me. He had given me opportunities to make money and had even taken time to share business strategies with me. When I entered his office and told him everything, he seemed surprised. "Do you have any proof that Ethan wants to kill you?" I pulled out a voice recorder and played our conversation. The first part was me deliberately seducing Ethan to gain his trust. Even I cringed at how coquettish I sounded, so I quickly explained, I was just pretending to gain his trust. Logan didn't respond, but his face darkened slightly. Sensing the change in his mood, I wisely shut my mouth. In the next second, he suddenly pulled me into his arms. The scent of pine surrounded me, and I could hear his heart beating steadily against my ear. I froze, completely caught off guard. He looked down at me, his gaze intense. "Susan, I advise you never to have thoughts of betraying me. As long as you're my wife, you must remain loyal to me." This idiot. How did he twist the situation to this? "Forget about that for now," I said, changing the subject. "The important thing is that your brother is planning to kill you. What do you want to do about it?" Logan's expression remained indifferent. "Let's see if he really has the ability to kill me. If he fails, then he's the one who dies." It was as if he didn't take Ethan's schemes seriously. That night, instead of being cautious, he even took me to a banquet, saying it would help with the development of the subsidiary company and allow me to meet potential clients. As soon as we entered, I could feel the weight of countless stares. Most of them were not friendly. Men are all the same. If I'd known, I wouldn't have brought her. I suddenly heard Logan's inner voice and turned to look at him in shock. His face was completely expressionless. Did he just think that? What did he mean by that? Sensing my gaze, he looked at me. "What's wrong?" I quickly shook my head. "Nothing." But then I heard another thought from him. "She's so clueless." I was stunned. The cold and arrogant CEO in my memory was thinking this? I forced myself to stay calm and keep my emotions in check. After the banquet, Logan took me home. Sophie and Ethan were waiting for us in the living room. Sophie smiled warmly and invited us to dinner. Ethan, on the other hand, couldn't stop staring at my chest. Then, with a relaxed smile, he said, "Brother-in-law, sister-in-law, Sophie and I bought some very good ingredients today. Come eat with us." Damn, could he be any more obvious? I genuinely couldn't understand how Logan had fallen for such a pathetic trap in my past life. The dinner table was full of delicious dishes, but I didn't dare take a single bite. Under the table, I reached for Logan's hand and squeezed it as a warning, but in the next second, before I could react, he had already picked up his chopsticks and taken a bite. "It tastes good," he said casually. "Let's all eat together." Sophie and Ethan exchanged a quick glance, their eyes gleaming with pleasure. My panic increased. I dug my nails into Logan's hand, trying to make him stop, but he didn't even flinch. I literally told him they were trying to kill him. Why is he still eating? Just as that thought crossed my mind, Logan and Sophie collapsed at the table. Mrs. Carter stormed in at that moment, her face livid. "Guards! Take these two filthy traitors to the underground cell. They must never come out again." I barely had time to process what was happening before Logan turned his head in my direction, his lips curving into a slight smile. "Susan, I'm not as foolish as you think," he said. "I already informed my mother to install security cameras throughout the house. The moment Ethan put poison in the drinks, we switched them. Instead of poison, they're the ones who drank sedatives." Then his voice lowered slightly. "But you seemed really scared for me just now. You're not falling in love with me, are you?" For some reason, my heart started racing at his words. "I'm not," I said quickly. "I was just afraid that if you died, I wouldn't have anyone to rely on." He flashed a bright smile. "Is that so?" With Sophie and Ethan locked in the underground cell, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. The two people I feared most were now out of the picture. I had also earned enough money. Now the only thing left was to talk about divorce with Logan. But I was waiting for an opportunity, and Logan was incredibly busy, barely coming home. I could only wait for the right moment. That day, I heard from the servants that Ethan and Sophie were repeatedly asking to see me. I decided to visit Sophie first. Her hair was a mess and she looked exhausted, but her eyes still burned with defiance. "How did you know I was trying to kill you? How did you find out?" In the next second, her eyes widened in realization. "I see. You came back too, didn't you?" I smiled and looked at her. "Sophie, you're only realizing this now?" Her face contorted with fury as she lunged at the bars, gripping them tightly as if she wanted to tear me apart. "You bitch. You were hiding it so well. You knew Ethan was a psychopath all along, didn't you? You just stood by and watched me jump into the abyss. Susan, you're so cruel." I met her gaze, staring at a face that bore some resemblance to mine. She was my blood sister, but in my past life, she had personally killed me. If I couldn't hear thoughts in this life, I would have died again. "You chose Ethan on your own. You also chose Logan. No matter who you choose, you're never satisfied. So you blame me. But have you ever thought that the real problem is you?" I said coldly. "You want to rely on men. I just want to rely on myself. That's the difference between us. But why do things always work out for you, no matter who you're with?" she cried in frustration. "You think my life is easy?" I scoffed. "I've fought for my survival every step of the way. I earned everything I have. But you? You never made any effort. You expect others to save you. That's why you deserve this outcome." With that, I turned and left. Behind me, Sophie screamed in rage. "Just wait. Next time I won't lose to you." Next, I went to see Ethan. He was carefully arranging a blanket. Some habits never change. His obsessive-compulsive tendencies were still there. When he saw me, he actually laughed. "Susan, you're clever," he said. "You're a great actress. You know, I really believed you wanted to be with me. I was fully prepared to kill Sophie and Logan for you, but you gave me a nice surprise. You deserved it," I retorted, glaring at him. His face overlapped with the distorted image of him from my past life, the man who had tortured me. My anger burned even stronger. He took slow, deliberate steps toward me, his gaze running up and down my body. "If I weren't locked up here," he murmured, "I'd tie you down and inject something that would make you feel pure bliss." I couldn't bear to hear any more. "Ethan, you're going to rot in hell," I spat, before turning and running out. Even after leaving the underground cell, my breathing was still unsteady. I couldn't shake the image of his unhinged expression, but at least in this life, I had finally escaped him. That night, Logan came home drunk. The moment he entered the room, he stumbled forward, bumping into me. We both fell to the floor. "You're drunk," I muttered, trying to push him off. "I'll make some tea to help you recover." But he didn't move. Instead, he started unbuttoning his shirt, his penetrating eyes locking onto mine with intense possessiveness. I froze. In that instant, I realized he wasn't drunk at all. "Logan, think carefully about what you're doing," I said, my voice firm. "We're just partners. You don't have permission to touch me." He suddenly covered my mouth and whispered in my ear, "No matter what, you're my wife, and I'm going to touch you." I pushed him away. "No, I want a divorce. You can't touch me." The room fell into complete silence. Logan's face darkened. He slowly released me, his expression unreadable. "I knew it," he murmured. "I knew you were planning to leave me." There was something in the way he said it. He sounded defeated. "Susan, you're a heartless woman," he said. "Have you forgotten me?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" His deep black eyes locked onto mine. "Do you remember Chase?" His words took me back to childhood memories. I was still in elementary school at the time. There was a boy with long hair who always wore a mask. The other kids constantly mocked him, calling him weak and effeminate. But I defended him, shielding him from their taunts and taking him to the back of the school. "You can't be so timid," I told him. "You have to learn to protect yourself." He slowly raised his head and removed his mask. "Thank you," he said softly. "I just want to grow my hair out so I can donate it to my aunt. She has cancer." It was the first time I saw his face, and I was stunned. He was incredibly handsome. In that moment, I fell in love with him at first sight. From that day on, I stayed by his side, protecting him every day. He told me his name was Chase. Later, his aunt passed away and he moved. "I've been looking for you all these years," Logan continued, his voice low, "until the day I discovered I could hear your thoughts. I didn't realize you were the person I was looking for all along, because I can only hear your thoughts." He let out a small, bitter laugh. "I never revealed myself because I was waiting for you to come to me first. I wanted to see if you still remembered me." His voice grew even softer. "Then one day I heard your thoughts. You said that once you saved 10 million you would leave me." His eyes turned red. "That's why I've been avoiding you these past few days. I didn't want to face the fact that you were planning to leave me." I was completely shocked. I never expected something so coincidental to exist in this world. Logan could also hear people's thoughts, and at that moment, I realized he had been testing me all along. "So that's why you knew I could hear your thoughts," he murmured. "You deliberately thought those things to confirm, didn't you?" I lowered my gaze. "I'm sorry. I never meant to use you. I was just afraid of being abandoned again. That's why I thought I should save enough money and leave on my own terms. Do you still want to leave me now?" he asked. I shook my head. Before, I wanted to leave because I thought he didn't love me. I believed that staying by his side would never bring me happiness, so it was better to rely on myself. But now I knew he was Chase. He had been waiting for me all along, so I would stay. I suddenly understood why in my past life he had rejected Sophie so strongly. He knew she wasn't me. That's why he never touched her. As that thought settled, I felt the warmth of his lips pressing gently against my cheek. "Stay with me forever, Susan," he whispered. My eyes filled with tears. "Yes," I choked. "Forever. Thank God I was given this second chance in life. Thank God I didn't lose the person I was meant to love."